Hello, everyone. Good morning and welcome along to Liverpool Echo's Blood Red channel. We are live with the Blood Red Morning Bulletin, or the Liverpool News Daily Show. Your place every weekday at 10 a.m. to get the latest Liverpool FC news, rumours, and of course transfers, as that will be the case all the way up to the January transfer window. I'm joined today by Liverpool.com's Dave Comerford. Dave, must have been nice for once to have a weekend after an early kick-off of the Liverpool game that actually hasn't been ruined by one, because all of the ones last season were, weren't they?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, it was one of them where you just wanted nothing to do with football for the rest of the weekend, most of the time last year. But it was nice to kind of know that the job was done from the Liverpool standpoint this time, and just kind of watch how Liverpool's rivals fared. Obviously, most of the managers pick up 3 points, but Man United stumbling again, Chelsea failing to get a result, so Liverpool gaining some early ground on those teams.
Yeah, really, really important stuff in Liverpool. They're keeping themselves alive. I know I'm not going to call it a title race yet, 5 games in, but they're at the right end of the table this time, given where they were this time last season. And as we said there, those dreaded early kickoffs that did ruin a lot of my weekends. I'm sure they did everyone else, wanting nothing to do with football, as you say. But let's just get a reaction to it then, Dave. Generally, I mean, you've had a couple of days to sleep on the result now. It really was an impressive performance in Liverpool in the second half. I know the first half was that same sluggish start. But these comeback wins we're seeing from Liverpool this season are really, really important, aren't they? That character they're showing. Because there's a lot of times last season where they sort of whimpered, didn't they? When they'd say go 1-0 down away to Wolves.
Yeah, one of the things I said after the game was that if that had happened last season, going behind and certainly producing the first half performance that Liverpool did, which incidentally was quite reminiscent of last season at times, then I think they lose the game or draw the game 10 times out of 10. But this time around, it was very refreshing to see kind of that resilience return. And we know how much this team has sort of made its name based on its mentality, based on its ability to win games when it's not at their best or anywhere near their best. So those are really important kind of tenets for Liverpool to uphold and to return this season. But obviously, you're kind of torn on it because the comebacks and the spirit, they're very important within a season, especially, in the quality of the Premier League. You are going to find yourself going behind at times. You are going to find yourself facing adversity, but equally, you can't rely on your attack as much as it has been firing, obviously, on all cylinders so far. You can't rely on them to score 2 goals every single game. You're going to need to grind out those 1-0 victories as well. You're going to need to keep those clean sheets. Liverpool have had difficult fixtures, but they've only managed to keep 1 clean sheet so far. So I think that has to be kind of the big focus moving forward, is can Liverpool start putting in consistent 90-minute performances, and can Liverpool start shutting the opposition out as well? Because that is when you have to start to really, really take them seriously, I think for now, they look like a team who can hopefully be comfortable in the top 4 race, but there's still kind of a couple of steps that they need to take before they can be regarded as serious contenders.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good point you make, and obviously we don't want to see Liverpool keep going behind, but it's also another very good point you make, the quality of the league now, because you see there's so many pundits over the weekend saying, oh, Liverpool shouldn't be going behind as much, oh, back when we were playing, we'd never be losing like that as a top side. But then actually the quality of the league has changed so much. I'd even say in the past 5 years, Wolves are probably a relegation candidate, and their front three is Pedro Neto, Mateus Cunha, and Hwang Hee-chan, who are all amazing players. 10 years ago, they could have been a top 4 attack, and that's not even an exaggeration when you look at, say, a Spurs side or an early City sside. But yeah, the quality of, of the opposition in the Premier League means you are going to go behind when you mess up, which Liverpool did with Joe Gomez filling in at right back. I don't want to go too harsh on him. We're going to focus today on the midfield, I think, Dave, because we've obviously, the defence have taken a bit of a pasting over the weekend, and the attack, as you say there, I think the difference is Luis Diaz and Diogo Jota are fit this season, and we're going to see the difference when you've got 5 amazing attackers you can choose from. That's what won Liverpool the game. But Dave, as I said, let's talk about the midfield, shall we? Because I feel like a few of the performances have gone under the radar slightly. I want to start with Dominic CalvertLewin, because he's obviously the main headliner, isn't he? Once again, particularly second half, carried Liverpool through, and he showed his difference, didn't he, to, say, Jordan Henderson or Fabinho in that midfield with his direct running, didn't he?
Yeah, I saw a stat this morning, actually, on Twitter, that Szoboszlai has contested 20 more duels than Henderson had at this stage last season, which I think more than anything else just shows the renewed energy that he has. And he's also, I saw this yesterday, he's played 90 minutes in every single game so far. And I was thinking to myself, maybe defenders aside, because obviously they tend to play 90 minutes anyway, how often has a new Jurgen Klopp sign a completed 90 minutes in that many consecutive games, straight off the bat. And I think...
Well, Dave, sorry to button up. A new midfielder completing 90 minutes every game, and the Jurgen Klopp side must not be easy to do.
I know, and obviously we've seen some of them, eased in as well. Like Fabinho, probably the prime example of that. But Szoboszlai thrown straight in there, and I think that really emphasises just how he does have this endless tank. And I think it wasn't happening for him in the first half. I mean, Klopp even said after the match that he didn't play well in the first 45 minutes. Not many players did, obviously. But, it was just moments of sloppiness from him. But you could also see him chasing back a lot when he did lose the ball. And I think that's one of the most satisfying things to watch from him so far, is just that constant application, that constant enthusiasm to go and win the ball back, especially if he's the one to lose it. And then second off, obviously we see this position change, which I thought was very bold from Klopp, to use basically two players who are attack-minded number 8s in a defensive midfield too. But I thought Szoboszlai in particular was really good, and he really stepped up in the second half. Showed obviously leadership in that sense, but just his long passing was very good. I think there was a moment where he kind of plays the ball into the corner of the penalty area. Robertson volleys it back across, and Diaz maybe should score with his header. So the long passing was very valuable. He was sort of like a deep line playmaker in that second half. I remember checking at the weekend for an article that I wrote. Szoboszlai, I think it was 20 passes into the final third he played during the match. No one else played more than 8. So he really was excelling in that role. And I guess it just kind of will make Jurgen Klopp even more delighted that he secured the player. I don't think we're necessarily going to see him as a number 6 on a regular basis, but maybe within games it is an option. And he just loves those players that are versatile. And really, Szoboszlai is still very early days, but he looks like he's got kind of that raw skill set to become a complete central midfield player in the Premier League. And it's almost more encouraging in a way for him to have a poor first half and then still, come out of the game looking really good, because it shows that even on maybe the days where it's not really happening for him, he will find a way to almost make it happen in the end.
Yeah, he just continues to get better and better, doesn't he, Szoboszlai, with every performance? It's an unbelievable signing. I mean, a classic Jurgen Klopp signing. Look, he's a number 10. He's got that amazing attacking and, playmaking skill set. He's physically competent. Klopp is going to turn him into a world-class box-to-box midfielder, much like Wijnaldum. I think he's already better than Wijnaldum was for me, to be honest. But yeah, as you say there, do you think maybe Klopp's been on the phone to Lee Carsley? Because we saw that double pivot we played with, Szoboszlai and Jones as a 2. Do you think there's going to be times this season where Liverpool do actually, go out there and play 4 attackers, and say you're chasing a game at Wolves is a good example of that? Are you looking to see that, double pivot in midfield more times this season with the players they've got now?
Yeah, probably. I mean, one of the things I wrote yesterday was that Klopp seems to really be keen to avoid going back to the 4-3-3 that we saw last season, because without Trent being available and Gomez being the only right back, it looked like, don't start inverting Joe Gomez, just go with that basic 4-3-3 with the 1 number 6, 2 number 8s, full-backs who are able to push high and wide. But obviously in the first half, he tried to use the same sort of box midfield template to a degree that he had been using when Trent was fit. That didn't work. Then in the second half, I was thinking, okay, is it now that he's going to change to maybe that more conventional 4-3-3 setup? But no, this time 4-2-3-1, very attack-minded 4-2-3-1 as well. And I do think it's something we could see going forward. I think especially, like I said, with the Szoboszlai point, I mean, I don't think we're going to see it maybe from the start of the game, but in situations where Liverpool are chasing, like you mentioned. And I think what helps with that is you've got 2 players who can basically play as a number 10.
Yeah.
So where they can kind of operate almost within the midfield and within the attack. And I think that's Cody Gakpo and Harvey Elliott would be the 2 players to look at and say could do that role. And then obviously you'd have a couple of midfield players behind them as well. Obviously interesting that maybe Wataru Endo wasn't used for that function at the weekend, but I'm sure his time will come. Maybe we'll see him playing on Thursday. But yeah, it was interesting to see Klopp called it a new system. Obviously, he's got this new plan B that he's happened upon now, and you can't just have one way of playing the whole season if you want to seriously compete. And maybe he stumbled onto something here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's exciting times for Liverpool, isn't it? And that breakaway from the 4-3-3, I think now is the time. I think we could maybe even see it in the Europa League, maybe have one as a 6 like an Endo and then play a Jones alongside him. But you mentioned there, Dave, Harvey Elliott. I thought he was superb once again when he came off the bench. Just want to ask you about him and his chances for this season, because he's sort of unlucky in a sense that he's a number 10, I suppose, orthodox, can play on the right, can play centre mid. He's not really got that out and out position. I think that can go to his detriment sometimes. But are you expecting to see Harvey Elliott more this season? Because based on his showing at Wolves, he definitely deserves some starting minutes, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean, this was another thing that I wrote about over the weekend. Elliott has come on as a substitute in every single game so far. Nunez has come on in 4 games, and other than that, no one else has made more than 2 sub appearances. So he has been the resident super sub so far, definitely. And he came on against Newcastle when Liverpool were losing. They obviously won that game. He came on against Wolves and Liverpool were drawing, and they won that game as well. So that's kind of 5 points that Klopp will see that he's gained with Elliott on the pitch. And he's had big moments in both those matches. Obviously he won the ball back for the Nunez winner against Newcastle. Has that deflected strike to kind of seal the game at the weekend as well. And I think he's kind of been the player who Klopp's relied on to make the impact in those situations, and he's certainly done that. Obviously now the question turns to how many strong substitute appearances does he need before he gets the opportunity to start a game, and I'm sure he'll be frustrated to a degree that he's not had that chance yet. But I do think, looking ahead to that game against Lask on Thursday, that he looks like a pretty surefire inclusion in that starting 11. And if he has a kind of a starting performance in that game off the back of what he's been doing as a substitute in the Premier League, then I think there's a very strong chance that he'll start against West Ham too, because as much as maybe it's a little bit hard to fit him in with how well Szoboszlai's playing, I think Klopp is going to find a way to accommodate him at a certain point, because he will want that element of meritocracy definitely with his team selection.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be baffled if we didn't see him starting in Austria on Thursday night when Liverpool begin the Europa League campaign. Of course, everyone's got so much build-up to that one for you ahead of Liverpool opening the Europa League campaign for the first time, and it must be, I think, 7 years, Dave. I think it is last time Liverpool in the Europa League. But yeah, loads of build-up for that one. Dave, just to finish off here then, let's get your predicted starting 11 then. Well, who would you be starting in Austria on Thursday night for Liverpool?
Well, I'd obviously have Kelleher in goal. I think it should be his competition. Back 4, probably the same as we saw against Wolves, except with Tsimikas coming in for Robertson. I think Tsimikas should play pretty much every game in this competition as well. Midfield, I think I'd go with Endo, definitely. Probably looking at, I don't know whether to do 4-2-3-1 or 4-2-3, but say I did just a 4-3-3, I'd have Endo as the 6, and then ahead of him, I'd probably have Gravenberch and Elliott. Obviously, full debut for Gravenberch. And then front line, I think Ben Doak should start. I think he should get an opportunity. And then definitely Nunez up front. Obviously, didn't start at the weekend. And then it's a question of basically Diaz or Jota for the left wing. But I think I'd probably go with Jota for this one and then start Diaz against West Ham.
Yeah. I mean, you could even start Gakpo on the left if you wanted to as well. That's the nice option with those 3, I suppose, isn't it? But yeah, could not agree more than midfield. I'd love to see a starting one of Endo, Gravenberch and Elliott. That'd be a nice, exciting one with 2 new signings. And then Elliott finally getting his chance to show what he's got. And I feel like that's a sort of 6, 8, 10, nicely laid out midfield. But yeah, we'll leave that there, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. As I said, we are live every weekday at 10 a.m. here on the Blood Red channel and across liverpool.com, Facebook and Twitter. In the meantime, make sure you're checking out all of the written content over at liverpool.com. We've got loads of brilliant writers, much like Dave. So go and check out all of that stuff. And of course, subscribe to whichever platform you get your podcast from, because we've got daily podcasts as well for you from Blood Red, including the Blood Red podcast going out today on Monday. But yeah, for now, we'll catch you again tomorrow at 10 a.m. on the Blood Red Morning Bulletin.